My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and this is the story of how I went from being the family scapegoat to the woman who saved them all. Whether they deserved it or not, the Whitmore family had money. Old money. The kind that came with mahogany paneled libraries, crystal chandeliers, and portraits of stern-faced ancestors staring down from gilded frames. My father, Reginald Whitmore, owned 3 successful lumber mills across the county. My mother, Vivian, spent her days hosting charity luncheons and her evenings critiquing everything I did wrong. I was the youngest of 3 children, born 10 years after my brother Charles and 8 years after my sister Margaret. By the time I arrived, my parents had already decided their family was complete. I was, as my mother often reminded me, an unexpected inconvenience. Charles was the golden boy, tall, handsome, destined to inherit the family business. Margaret was the perfect daughter, beautiful, married well to a banker named Theodore, and produced 2 adorable grandchildren right on schedule. And then there was me, I was bookish where they were social, quiet where they were commanding, practical where they were extravagant. I preferred reading in the garden to attending their endless social functions. I asked too many questions about the business, and not enough about fashion. I was, in their eyes, a disappointment wrapped in hand-me-down dresses. Eleanor simply doesn't have the Whitmore spirit. My mother would say to her friends as if I wasn't standing right there. She's so ... ordinary. The words stung more each time she said it, ordinary, as if being ordinary was the worst thing a person could be. When I graduated from high school, I wanted to go to college. I'd been accepted to 3 universities, including one with an excellent accounting program. But my father refused to pay for what he called unnecessary education for a girl. Marriage is your college, Eleanor, he declared over dinner one evening. Find a suitable husband and stop filling your head with nonsense. But no suitable husband came calling. While Margaret had suitors lined up around the block, I received no such attention. My parents' disappointment was palpable. Age 25, I was officially the family spinster. By 30, I was the cautionary tale they told at dinner parties. Poor Eleanor, they'd say, shaking their heads. She just never quite figured it out. I spent my 20s and 30s helping my mother with her charity work, managing the household, accounts, and essentially serving as an unpaid assistant to the family. I was useful, but never valued. Needed, but never appreciated. It was during one of these mundane tasks organizing my father's study that I first discovered the family's financial records. What I found made my blood run cold. The lumber business that had supported our family for 3 generations was failing, not just struggling, failing catastrophically. My father had been borrowing against the mills, mortgaging properties, and taking out loans he couldn't repay. The perfect Whitmore facade was crumbling, and no one seemed to notice except me. I spent weeks secretly going through every document, every contract, every receipt. My years of managing household accounts had taught me to read financial statements, and what I saw terrified me. The family was months away from bankruptcy. But I also saw something else. Opportunities, investments that could work if managed properly. Properties that could be developed. Assets that could be restructured. I tried to talk to my father about it. Father, I've been looking at the books. I think there might be some ways to Eleanor. He cut me off sharply. Women don't understand business. Leave these matters to the men. I tried Charles next. He was supposed to be learning the business, after all. But when I brought up my concerns, he laughed. Eleanor, you're being dramatic. Father knows what he's doing. The business is fine. It wasn't fine. It was a disaster waiting to happen. And I was the only one who seemed to understand the magnitude of what was coming. If you're enjoying this story of family dynamics and hidden strength, please consider subscribing to hear more tales of resilience and empowerment. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was having breakfast alone. As usual, when my father burst into the dining room, his face pale and his hands shaking. Asterisk, they're calling in the loans, he said. To no one in particular, all of them, at once. Asterisk, my mother dropped her teacup, and it shattered against the marble floor. What do you mean, calling in the loans? Asterisk, the banks. They want their money now. Asterisk, Charles appeared in the doorway, still in his dressing gown. Father, surely you can negotiate. Asterisk, there's nothing to negotiate. My father shouted, we're ruined, completely ruined. Asterisk, the next few hours were chaos. Lawyers arrived, accountants came and went, phone calls were made, doors were slammed. And through it all, I sat in the corner of the study, watching my family's world collapse around them. Asterisk, that's when I heard it. The conversation that changed everything. Asterisk, well, my mother said to Margaret, her voice bitter, at least we won't have to worry about Eleanor anymore. She'll have to find her own way now. She's been nothing but a liability all these years anyway. Asterisk, a liability, Margaret agreed. Always taking up space, never contributing anything useful. Maybe this will finally force her to grow up. Asterisk, Charles nodded grimly. The last thing we need is dead weight when we're trying to rebuild. Asterisk, dead weight, a liability. After everything I'd done for them, after all the years of service and sacrifice, that's what I was to them. Asterisk, something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long. I stood up quietly and walked out of the room. None of them noticed me leave. Asterisk, that night, I made a decision. That would change everything. I wasn't going to let them fail. Not because they deserved my help, but because I deserved better than to watch my family destroy themselves through their own arrogance and stupidity. Asterisk, I had been quietly managing my own small savings for years, money I'd earned helping neighbors. With their bookkeeping investments I'd made with my modest allowance. Even some stocks I'd purchased with money saved from household expenses. It wasn't much by Whitmore standards, but it was enough to start with. Asterisk, more importantly, I had something they didn't. I understood the business. I'd been watching and learning for decades while they'd been playing at being important. I knew which properties were valuable, which contracts were worth saving, and which debts needed to be paid first. Asterisk, I started small. I contacted some of my father's creditors directly, not as Eleanor Whitmore, it's a family disappointment, but as E. Whitmore, business representative. I negotiated payment plans, restructured debts, and bought time. Asterisk, I sold some of my own stocks and used the money to make strategic payments that would keep the banks from seizing the most valuable properties. I reached out to contacts I'd made through my mother's charity work. Wealthy women who had their own investment interests and quietly arranged private loans at better terms than the banks were offering. Asterisk. Most importantly, I started a small consulting business. Years of managing accounts had taught me skills that other struggling businesses needed. I worked nights and weekends building a client base and earning money that I could funnel back into saving the family assets. Asterisk, all of this I did in secret. My family was so absorbed in their own drama that they never noticed I was gone for hours at a time. They never questioned where I was or what I was doing. I was invisible to them. And for the first time in my life, I used that invisibility to my advantage. Asterisk, it took me 8 months to stabilize the situation. 8 months of working 18-hour days, of sacrificing my own comfort, of using every skill I've developed over decades of being the family's unpaid helper. But I did it. Asterisk, the morning I knew we were safe, I called a family meeting. My father, looking 10 years older than he had the year before, sat at the head of the table. My mother, her perfectly coiffed hair now showing gray roots, sat to his right. Charles and Margaret flanked them, both looking haggard and defeated. Asterisk, I have some news about the financial situation. I began calmly. Asterisk. My father sighed heavily. Eleanor, we appreciate your concern, but this isn't something you can help with. We're meeting with the lawyers tomorrow to discuss bankruptcy proceedings. You won't be filing for bankruptcy, I said simply. They all stared at me. Margaret actually laughed, a bitter sound. Eleanor, you don't understand. We're going to lose everything. The mills, the house, everything. Asterisk, no, I said, pulling out a folder thick with documents. You're not. Asterisk, I spread the papers across the table. Loan agreements, payment schedules, investment certificates, property deeds, all bearing signatures and stamps showing that the Whitmore family debts had been restructured, refinanced, or paid off entirely. Asterisk, the mills are safe, I continued, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. I've negotiated new contracts with 3 major construction companies. The house is no longer mortgaged. I paid off the loan last month. The family assets are secure. Asterisk, the silence in the room was deafening. Finally, my father spoke, his voice barely a whisper. How, asterisk, I did what none of you thought to do, I said. I actually looked at the numbers. I understood the business. I made the hard decisions and did the work necessary to fix the problems. Asterisk, Charles leaned forward, his face flushed. That's impossible. You don't have that kind of money. Asterisk, I do now. I said, I've built a very successful consulting practice over the past 8 months. I've also made some excellent investments. Turns out, I'm quite good at business. Asterisk, my mother's face had gone completely white. You saved us. Asterisk, I saved the family assets, I corrected. Whether I saved you remains to be seen. Asterisk, if this story is resonating with you, please hit the subscribe button. There's so much more to explore about finding strength in unexpected places. Asterisk. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out another set of documents. These are the new arrangements, I said, sliding papers across the table to each of them. Asterisk, Father, you're officially retiring from active management of the business. You'll receive a generous monthly allowance, but all major decisions now go through me. The mills are profitable again, but only because I've restructured everything from the ground up. Asterisk, my father's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Can't do this. It's my business. Asterisk, it was your business, I corrected. Now it's mine. Legally, I own controlling interest in all 3 mills as of yesterday. Asterisk, I turned to Charles. Continue to work in the business, but in a junior capacity. You'll learn the trade properly, this time from the ground up. No more executive decisions until you actually understand how lumber is processed, priced, and sold. Asterisk, Charles started to object, but I held up a hand. The alternative is unemployment. Your choice. Asterisk, Margaret had been unusually quiet. I slid her document across the table. Your husband's bank was one of the institutions calling in our loans. I've arranged for the family to move our accounts elsewhere. Theodore will need to find new investors for his projects. You can't punish Theodore for, Margaret began. I'm not punishing anyone, I said calmly. I'm making business decisions. The same kind of decisions you all expected me to be too ordinary to understand. Asterisk, my mother finally found her voice. Eleanor, surely you're not going to abandon your family over some harsh words. Asterisk, some harsh words. I laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. Mother, you spent 47 years telling me I was worthless. You called me a liability. You said I was dead weight. You were prepared to abandon me the moment things got difficult. Asterisk, I stood up, gathering my papers. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm simply changing the terms of our relationship. You'll all be provided for, but you'll no longer be in charge. Those days are over. Asterisk, the transformation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. Within a year, I had expanded the lumber business into construction and development. Within 2 years, I had diversified into real estate and manufacturing. My consulting practice grew into a full-service business management firm. Asterisk, I moved out of the family home and into a beautiful apartment downtown. I traveled, I bought art. I learned to drive and purchased my own automobile. I joined investment clubs and business associations. I became, in every sense, the successful businesswoman I'd always had the potential to be. Asterisk, my family struggled to adjust to the new reality. My father, stripped of his authority but secure in his retirement, spent his days playing golf and complaining to anyone who would listen about his ungrateful daughter. My mother continued her charity work, but with a much smaller budget and considerably less influence. Asterisk, Charles, to his credit, actually learned to work. It took him 2 years to understand lumber grading and pricing, but he eventually became competent at managing day-to-day operations. Margaret's marriage suffered when Theodore's business ventures failed without the Whitmore family's financial backing. But she found work teaching at a local private school and discovered she enjoyed it. As for me, I flourished. I had always been capable. I simply hadn't been given the opportunity to show it. Once I stopped trying to earn their approval and started focusing on my own success, there was no limit to what I could achieve. Asterisk, 3 years after I took control of the family business, my father had a heart attack. Not a severe one, but enough to remind everyone that he was mortal. As he recovered, he asked to see me privately. Asterisk, Eleanor. He said, his voice weak but sincere, I owe you an apology. I sat quietly, waiting for him to continue. I was wrong about you, about your capabilities, about your worth, about everything. You saved this family, and I repaid you with cruelty and dismissal. He paused, struggling for words. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I see now what I was too blind to see before. Asterisk, it was the first time in my life that my father had ever apologized to me for anything. The first time he'd acknowledged that I had value beyond my usefulness as an unpaid servant. Asterisk, I appreciate that, Father, I said finally, but I didn't save the family for your approval. I saved it because it was the right thing to do and because I could. Asterisk, he nodded, tears in his eyes. You're a better person than I ever was. A better business person, too. Asterisk, my mother's reckoning came later, during one of our now monthly family dinners. She had been unusually quiet throughout the meal, and as we sat in the parlor afterward, she suddenly spoke up. Asterisk, I called you ordinary, Sue said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was wrong. You're extraordinary. You always were. Just couldn't see it. Asterisk, you didn't want to see it, I corrected gently. There's a difference. Asterisk, she nodded, accepting the rebuke. I wasted so many years trying to make you into something you weren't, instead of appreciating what you were. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Please subscribe to hear more stories about family resilience and the unexpected power we all carry within us. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk today. The Whitmore family businesses are worth more than they ever were under my father's leadership. I've created jobs for hundreds of people, supported dozens of local charities, and built a legacy that will last for generations. Asterisk, more importantly, I've changed how my family sees me and how I see myself. I'm no longer the disappointment, the burden, the liability. I'm Eleanor Whitmore, businesswoman, investor, and the woman who refused to accept other people's limitations on her potential. Asterisk, my story isn't about revenge. Though I'd be lying if I said there wasn't satisfaction in proving them all wrong. It's about the power that comes from refusing to accept other people's definitions of who you are and what you're capable of. Asterisk. It's about the strength that comes from being underestimated and the advantage that comes from being overlooked. About the moment when you realize that the person everyone dismisses might just be the person who holds the key to everything. Asterisk, 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 epilogue. The woman I became, asterisk, 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 I never married. I never had children. I never lived the life my parents expected me to live. But I lived the life I chose, and that has made all the difference. Asterisk, I'm 62 now. And I still run my businesses with the same attention to detail that allowed me to save my family all those years ago. I still live in my downtown apartment, still drive my own car, still make my own decisions. Asterisk. My family members are all comfortable now, secure in their retirements and their allowances. They're grateful in their way, though it took them years to learn how to express it. We have dinner together once a month, and they listen when I speak. They ask for my advice and respect my decisions. Asterisk. But the most important thing I learned from this experience is that the power to change your life has always been within you. It's not about proving other people wrong, it's about proving yourself. Right? It's not about seeking approval, it's about creating your own definition of success. Asterisk, they called me a liability. They said I was dead weight. They assumed I would disappear quietly when things got difficult. Asterisk, they were wrong about everything. Asterisk, I wasn't their liability. I was their salvation. Asterisk, and I was never ordinary. I was extraordinary. I just needed the chance to prove it. Asterisk, the family that once dismissed me now depends on me. The woman they once overlooked now overlooks them. The daughter they once considered a disappointment is now the reason they still have a legacy to pass on. Asterisk. Sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the one who holds all the power. Sometimes the quiet one in the corner is the one who sees everything clearly. Sometimes the family disappointment is actually the family's greatest strength. Asterisk, I am Eleanor Whitmore. And I am no one's liability. Asterisk.